St. Lucia, this is Open Mic, and I'm back to the fourth segment of my program. At the end of 90 days, when the elections were done, what do you think happened? Dr. Anthony won the elections 16-1. And Mr. Pritzker then came back to St. Lucia, and he said to me, "How did you anticipate?" I said, "No, I just said you should wait another 90 days. And within a very short space of time, Mr. Pritzker saw the northern tip of St. Lucia, which is the Causeway, and decided that he would do a Hyatt Hotel. Now, doing the Hyatt Hotel, I want St. Lucians to know that Hyatt don't build hotels. They give licenses and they get people to invest. And they picked an English group who started to build the Hyatt Hotel. 50% through construction, there were difficulties because the British contractors were unable to deal with the local conditions in construction, and the project stopped. I was so fearful that the hotel would not be built that I took on my own to call the contractors, find out what their difficulties were. They highlighted those difficulties, and I had a very good relationship with Dr. Anthony. I persuaded them to return to St. Lucia, and Dr. Anthony was very cooperative in meeting with the contractors despite his reservations, and the hotel commenced again. The hotel was completed, but unfortunately, the British contractors were not able to give a proper finish based on the difficulties they encountered in St. Lucia. Unfortunately, you had the 9/11 situation, and between a hotel that was not well finished, 9/11, and Hyatt being a new player in St. Lucia, the odds seemed against them. But business people don't like losing money for too long, especially when they look in the horizon and see colors of red. So the hotel went into liquidation, and the banks wanted to get the hotel off the books fairly quickly, and Sandals was the only serious contender. There were many hoteliers that wanted all kinds of concessions and wanted to come in, the usual nonsense that goes on. And to make a long story short, Sandals finally bought the hotel from the receivers and got to work, and using his phrase again, it had to be sandalized. And to the best of my knowledge, over $15 million was spent to bring the Hyatt Hotel to a Sandals standard. We all know what has happened at the Sandals Grand, which is what this hotel is now known as. It is a flagship for the Sandals organization because it's a beautiful bay, it's well located, St. Lucians are wonderful people, and the hotel has been a total success. But unfortunately, when you have investors like Butch Stewart, you need to recognize their ability and recognize also that not because Sandals has been successful in St. Lucia, that another group could come in and be as successful. And all we have to do is to revisit what happened to Hyatt. Hyatt did not have the experience to run a hotel in St. Lucia based on their modus operandi. Hyatt is a well-run company with hotels all over the world with tremendous airlift, and all they have to do is to call American or call Delta and say, look at me, we want so many flights, and that happens. But unfortunately, in the small islands, it doesn't work like that. Sandals had the opportunity of investing abroad internationally. But if you notice, they have stuck to the Caribbean. And the reason why they have stuck to the Caribbean, because everybody knows what's cooking in their pot. The Sandals people understand the Caribbean people, and today you have the Sandals in Antigua, Jamaica, Turks and Caicos, St. Lucia, and now Grenada and Barbados. Now, that is the area that I have some concern over, and that is Sandals has been extremely comfortable in St. Lucia and has worked with both administrations, both the United Workers' Party and the Labour Party. And they have done a wonderful job. And despite all the accusations, I can say emphatically, Mr. Stewart has kept his nose out of politics. As we all know, there were great plans for the causeway besides the Sandals Grand. If I'm not mistaken, almost 35 acres of land were purchased, which was where the Rosewood was to go, plus from the landings to about 3/4 down to Groselet. To the best of my knowledge, on the Rosewood side, there were some overwater suites and some 100 rooms that were to go in. And on the other section, there were plans for a 300-room Beaches Hotel. But the situation in the last few years in the tourism industry has been difficult. Difficult because the price of fuel had gone up, airfares went up. 2008, you had the calamity in the financial institutions. So there were a number of reasons why investors were not at lib to do what they had to do. Consequently, governments were under pressure, and that is the time when one really need to go out and be astute in getting investors to come to St. Lucia. The situation has changed dramatically in the tourism industry because the cruise lines are the most, should I say, aggressive competitors. It's not the other hotels. And what makes the cruise lines so competent and effective is the fact that they can stop in Miami, pick up all their produce, duty-free prices. The ships can be registered in areas where there's no income tax, and they can do as they please, to a certain extent, of course. And that makes it a lot easier for them. And hoteliers in the region have been clamoring for a number of years at the different costs. We call them stealth taxes that are gradually instituted, and you know, they grow and grow, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a business with taxes and you're in trouble. So I happen to be in Grenada together with Mr. Stewart when he decided to move into Grenada. And we explained to the Prime Minister, Mr. Mitchell, when I say we, I shouldn't say we because I'm not a shareholder in Sandals, but I was there as an observer with his lawyers, the importance of coming into Grenada. Grenada was dead when we went there. The Maurice Bishop Airport was empty, and we met Mr. Mitchell, and within 2 hours there was a deal. And within 6 months, Sandals was well on its way. I distinctly recall going to the property one day, and I checked over 100 vehicles which were the workers parked outside the property. There were over 40 containers lined up, and Sandals took a 200-room hotel, which is called the La Source, and refurbished it, adding another 100 rooms, and worked 24 hours a day for 12 consecutive months, and finished that project on time. And I say to St. Lucians one day, you must visit Grenada to see what the outcome was. I distinctly recall Mr. Stewart at the airport telling the immigration and customs, in the next 6 months, you will not believe the difference when Sandals gets going. I don't think they really believed it. But you know what happened? It has come to pass. Because only this week, I checked up with some hoteliers in Grenada who are my friends, and they told me it's just about a year or a little more that Sandals is there. And this is the first time in the history of Grenada that they don't have to pay any money to airlines. And American Airlines has almost 7 flights a week to Grenada. And Grenada, I spoke recently to the customs and immigration, and they told me they simply could not imagine what one hotel has done for Grenada, because the other hoteliers down there did not see Sandals as a competitor. They saw him as a person, as an innovator, and they are benefiting today because their hotels are filled. It didn't take a very long time for Barbados to understand what was going on. And Mr. Stewart asked me whether I would accompany the Minister of Tourism, the Minister of Finance, and a couple tourism people from Barbados on his jet to Turks and Caicos, because they wanted to see what was going on there. And I agreed, and we went up with the various government officials and visited the Turks and Caicos. That hotel has 945 rooms, 20 restaurants, and has an occupancy pretty close to 100%. And imagine that, St. Lucians. When that hotel is filled, they are serving 35,000 meals a day. That is what is most interesting, and the number of employees at that hotel. I sat with the various ministers from Barbados, and they were completely blown away. Based on what they saw and the concessions that Sandals wanted to put up such a hotel in Barbados, the Bajans realized that they were on the right track. And within 6 months, Barbados gave the same concessions that they got in Grenada. And what happened there? The Casuarina Hotel, which was struggling, a 300-room hotel, was taken over, bought by Sandals, closed for almost 9 months, renovated to the tune of some $50 to $60 million, and has produced a product which is second to none in Barbados. As a result, Barbadians have told me that the finished product at Casuarina is equivalent to Sandy Lane. And we all know that Sandy Lane is a top 5-star hotel, which has been so for years. What has happened now? The government, another 40 acres of land has been purchased on the west coast, and sometime next year, a 350-room Beaches Hotel is going to be built there. In addition to that, at the Casuarina Hotel, which was finished 6 months ago with 300 rooms, another 10 acres was purchased, and another 250 rooms is starting there within 90 days. So we're talking of 550 rooms. Now, you know what that does, St. Lucia? Because when you're talking of new hotels going up under the Sandals banner, and the hotels in St. Lucia have been built, they now have to be refurbished and brought to that standard. So, Antigua, what has happened in Antigua? The Antigua Halcyon was in trouble, and 6 weeks ago, it was taken over by Sandals. That probably, with 35 acres of land, that probably will be demolished, and you will see a brand new Sandals again. They already have some 400 rooms in Antigua. So, you know, here you have a West Indian entrepreneur, okay, willing to invest. So we need, our politicians need to understand what is going on all around them today and deal with it, or else we'll be left behind. So, St. Lucia, I have given you today a synopsis of what is around us. It's volcanoes, sargasso weed, entrepreneurs, hotels, and all I say to St. Lucia is we need to sit back and revisit what has gone on, because this world is changing very, very quickly. And on that score, I now bring my open mic to a close today, and hopefully that next week my partner will be available to discuss a few more items. St. Lucia, I wish to thank you.